recruiting sucks. Everyone knows it. If you want to find out how I completely fumbled when I had my very first capital markets interview with a VP of IB because I didn't know what a VP does, or how I cried immediately after having an interview, and how that ironically like changed my outlook on recruiting, and then how I found out I didn't get a full-time return offer after turning back down Goldman Sachs. Let's talk about it. Hey friends, long time no see. What is with my hair? I put a singular braid in it for work today, you know, like kind of the ones that like I guess girls do when they're going to concerts or like raves or the club or whatever. I put one and it just looks like I had a full perm. Super weird. Anyway, I've not seen y'all for a really long time. I've been active on TikTok, so you can follow me at itswinette YT stands for YouTube, not white. Anyway, I want to be back on this channel. You guys mean a lot to me, and I just disappear sometimes, and I feel bad about it. Anyway, today I want to talk about all about my cringe recruitment stories / rejections, because I think it's so easy. Like, this is kind of transition into more like a LinkedIn early career / like early 20s type of, early 20s type of content. And yeah, I did my Friday with Friends podcast. I hope to get that back going, up and running again, but you know, with work it's kind of tough. So I just wanted to make more like personal videos for now until like I can get back into the Friday with Friends swing of things. And yeah, if you look on LinkedIn, like I always say LinkedIn is so fake, because you might think like, oh, she got it made, she's interned, you know, at 2 investment banks, got an offer from Goldman, New York, like at a big tech company now, whatever, like she pivoted, that's so cool. But like in the end, like there's been a lot of rejections. There've been like a ton of cringy moments, and I know right now a lot of you are recruiting for summer 2024, maybe even summer 25. I don't even know, maybe summer 26. I think it's a bit extreme, but like I've seen summer 25 like come out and like offers go out, so maybe you are recruiting for summer 26. Anyway, recruitment is always on the minds of students, and now that I've graduated, I've been working a full-time job in big tech for my first quarter now, so I'm officially off ramp and I like am fully in the job now. I'm done onboarding. I thought I could have the maturity to take a step back and tell you about some of the cringy stories that I've had, so that you know that you're not alone and they're actually kind of funny when you come out on the other side. So let's go. Okay, story number 1. This is when I was in my first year summer. I was working at a startup and I got an interview for RBC's Women's Advisory Program, which is an early identification program for female students going into their second year, and it kind of secures them a second year capital markets internship, usually like front office or middle office. So like I had an interview scheduled because I sent my little like cold email template to the recruiter. I had a chat with her, and yeah, I had one interview. It was just one interview, and it was with a VP of investment banking. No idea what investment banking was. Literally didn't know whether it was different than commercial banking or what, you know, what I see happens at the branch. Didn't know about sales and trading. I literally didn't know. All I knew was that this is so funny. All I knew was that he was a vice president and he was young. And I was telling my parents, I was like, whoa, like he's only 30. He only looks 30 and he's a vice president. Little did I know that like the way that investment banks are structured, like vice president really is just a middle manager. Like in any other job, their title would be like manager or like vice president in a normal like non-capital markets in investment banking role is like, you know. But like I saw this thing on LinkedIn saying that like the reason why they're called vice presidents is because a lot of the people in that level are in charge of sales and bringing in business, and so it's important that they have a fancy title. But like I was really intimidated because I was like, this guy is 30 and he's a vice president. My mom and dad like thought that was, you know, we like didn't know the titles because we don't work in finance. Like that's not in my family, so we're like, oh, he's so young, like he must be, you know, incredibly talented. And yeah, he's probably smart, but like like, I was out here thinking he was the youngest VP in history of Canada. So then anyway, as I was speaking with him, this was my first, like, big corporate interview, because previously I just interviewed at a startup, which I love, by the way. But yeah, I was already nervous, and then on top of this, I thought this guy was historic and a genius and, like, one of a kind. And so I just fumbled the bag. I was so incredibly awkward. And I remember he was, like, at a cottage, and, like, I was having trouble hearing him too, because there's some lawnmower going on, so that kind of flustered me. And, like, I, like, complimented how nice his cottage looked. No comment on that. Like, it was just, like, really weird, and I was, like, pulling out all the stops, and I was just, like, I wasn't being myself. Like, he would ask me a question, and I would answer in, like, 3 sentences, and there'd be a lot of dead silence, because I was just, like, so freaking intimidated by him, even though he was, like, a nice guy, and he was just chilling at his cottage. Like, you know, this is, like, it's probably, like, a Thursday, Friday in the summer. Like, this is a nice, hazy little activity for him to do. But obviously it was a big deal to me. And then just on top of the fact that I didn't really understand the titles of investment bankers, I feel like if I knew he was more just, like, you know, really in the middle of the path, like, VP is obviously, you know, still on the higher end of things, but, you know, no, actually, if you split it up, they're literally right in the middle. Like, if I just, like, would have known, and then I could have, like, framed my conversation a bit better with him. That's why knowledge is key. You know, knowledge is key, so you don't get completely steamrolled by a title like that, you know, doesn't actually mean that they're the smartest person in the country. Okay, number 2. This isn't a rejection, because I ended up getting this internship. It was my second year summer internship at Scotiabank S&T. That was, like, getting that internship was probably, like, one of the best feelings, because that was, like, my first, like, corporate internship. And at that time I didn't even know, like, if it was difficult to get into sales and trading. I just knew, like, I got into Scotiabank, and I thought that was really dope, because I never had a big name on my resume. And honestly, in first year, the thought of even making it into a big company just fathomed me. Like, is that a word? But I just did not understand how that was possible. So anyway, during that interview though, so the first interview, they were asking me about, like, what I look for when I want to invest in a stock. And I talked about company news, I talked about leadership, I talked about, you know, overall industry trends, and then my big fat mouth talked about financial ratios. And this was a panel, so there were, like, 3 traders on this call, and they're like, oh, what financial ratios? And the way a rule in interviews, especially in technical interviews, you don't open your mouth about something unless you know about that topic, so that, you know, if they want to double click on that, you have that information. I did not have that information. So she's like, oh, like, what financial ratios do you look for? And I was like, you know, PE, EPS. And I was just like, I think those were the only 2 ones. And they're like, okay, you know, what's a good benchmark for this sort of industry? Like, you know, you can't just name the names, like, what's the context? And I was just like, you know, whether it's high or low, it made no sense. It made literally no sense. I was like, if it's higher than average, lower than average, like, bro, also you need to know the benchmarks for those, or, like, you need to know, like, because some of them, it's better if it's higher, it's better if it's lower, or sometimes, see, I'm not even a finance girl anymore, so it's hard for me to explain, but, like, sometimes, like, higher is better for certain industries, lower is better for certain industries. They're just industry standards and benchmarks that, like, don't open your big fat mouth to talk about something you don't know anything about. So that was kind of, like, a little bit of a hiccup. And I just, you know, that was the only one, like, I kind of, like, fumbled-ish a little bit in my first, like, round of super days for Scotiabank. But, like, again, I was just starting my second year, so they had a lot of, like, grace and patience with me, which thank you for that. Thank you. If I was a third year, I don't know how well that would have gone. Okay, another part of the Scotiabank interview one, which, by the way, like, I keep having to remind y'all and myself that I did get that internship like, this is just talking about my rejections and my fumbles. So, like, you know, keep in mind, the majority of the interviews were, like, I would say, like, I nailed, like, 90% of the questions, but there were, like, here's another one. So this one was, like, the pure technical interview, which I think they got rid of, by the way. They replaced it with, like, a stock pitch challenge instead to make it a bit more, like, less, like, you know, drilling the questions. But this trader was really intimidating, and he asked me something about, like, puts and calls. I still don't know what puts and calls are. The way I hesitated to tell you that, I don't know what that is, because I don't want you to think poorly of me. But also, why do I care? Because I'm not even working in finance anymore. I don't understand puts and calls. Derivatives, aren't they just, you know, something I had to do, like, x to the 3 equals 2x? Yeah, like, isn't that, like, a calculus thing? I know it's a thing in finance, but, like, derivatives, options, I just don't understand. And, like, he asked me some question about put and call, and then I was like, could you repeat that? And he said it again, very slowly, and usually you want to give it a stab. I could not stab, because I didn't even know what the target was, what he was talking about. So, you know, I kind of just repeated the question back to him in a way that seemed like I was thinking about it. Like, I was like, so the put and the call and the price and the time. And anyway, he was like, I'll just help you out through this one. And I was like, thank you. I was a little bit cringe, but yeah, again, I was young. I didn't even have a finance class at that point. But I'm not gonna lie, when I was studying for that interview, I just hoped they wouldn't ask me about puts and calls, because it was, like, lower down on the training guide I was using. And I was like, oh, they're not gonna ask me this. Tell me why. I was literally learning about, like, bonds for the first time before my, like, 24 hours before my sales and training interview. But it is what it is. Okay, so this one's actually a very sensitive one for me. And I didn't think I would ever talk about this. So after landing Scotiabank, I interviewed with another bank for one of their diversity programs. Towards the end of my second year, towards the end of my second year and the start of my second year summer, so while I was at Scotiabank, I was interviewing for 3 different diversity programs across, like, 3 different Canadian investment banks. And one of them made me cry. One of them made me cry, but there was a huge silver lining to this one. So I actually didn't even apply to this investment bank. I was just, like, moderating a competition, like a stock pitch competition, and there was a managing director there, and he really liked me. I don't know what exactly stood out to him about me, because I don't particularly remember my performance as a moderator for a panel being extremely impressive. I feel like I was just talking, and the people I was interviewing were actually really impressive, but I was just there. Anyway, he liked me, and, like, I've, like, not had this happen before, but he, like, just directly went to HR and was like, hey, like, I met Wynette over this, like, stock pitch competition where she was moderating. I thought she'd be a great fit for the diversity scholarship. Can you, like, loop her in? And at that point, like, the scholarship already closed, and I knew it closed. I just didn't apply. And then, like, the recruiter reached out, like, can you please get your application package to me, like, blah, blah, blah. So, like, I'm like, damn, okay. So I get it prepared, you know, I'm not one to say no, obviously. I get it prepared within, like, 2 hours, drop everything. Okay, I'm going to send it in. And she's like, wow, you're so fast, like, good job. I get an interview, like, in a few days, like, the following week. So, I was really thankful to that MD. He didn't even, like, talk to me about it first. He just, you know, referred me right away, and I got an interview. And while I was prepping for that interview, I did get a chance to chat with him, and he was like, oh, like, I think, you know, you're doing sales and trading at Scotiabank. Perhaps you can do investment banking next year. You know, it's good to see different sides of the investment bank. And I remember being so turned off by investment banking, like, just the sheer hours. Like, it's just something, if you know me in real life, like, I can't, I, like, am a hard worker, but, like, doing things outside of work is very important to me. I mean, hence this YouTube. So like I was never attracted to investment banking, but yeah, he was like flattering me and whatever, and like saying like, I could look at different areas, and like he himself was an MD of investment banking. And then I just thought, oh, like, would that make me cool? Like, I was doing it for the clout. I was like, will my LinkedIn look good if there was investment banking there? So I was like, okay, perhaps. But then I was like, does that mean I have to study 400 M&I or whatever it's called? I thought it was 400 M&A. I only recently found out it was 400 M&I. Anyway, so I have this interview, and it's with like someone, it's actually with two people in sales and trading, but like the way that this bank does internships for like, or they do like interviews for both for their diversity, and then I guess like whoever gets the offer, you just pick what stream you're going to go down, whereas some banks like separate it, but this is the same interview process. I thought I was so cool because I was going to work at Scotiabank in like 2 weeks, on their training floor, that like I emailed the interviewers before my interview, which I definitely don't suggest you do because it's so try hard. But the part that's like so cringe is that that's the worst interview I've ever had, and I was the one that emailed them before. So cringe. Anyway, I cannot even first begin to describe this interview. First of all, I was asked like, why would I want to go to this bank as opposed to like staying at Scotiabank? Kind of fumbled that answer. Didn't think it would be that direct like that, which partly my fault, but it was a bit of a fumble. And like, it was just like incredibly awkward. There were no technical questions, but like, I don't know. I couldn't understand why it was so awkward. And I just remember feeling like pretty bad about myself during that interview. Like it was almost like a bit condescending-y vibes. Like it wasn't even just like, oh, awkward. Like it was just like, I feel like I'm being talked down to, or like maybe because I was going to Scotiabank for sales and training anyway. I don't think they actually liked that a lot, and they just, wondered why I'm applying to this position. Anyway, really awkward. And I just remember right after the call, I hung up and then I went on my bed and I cried. So dramatic. And then like a few days later, I get a call from the recruiter, or I get a rejection, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's very expected. Then I get a call from the recruiter, and she actually gives me feedback, which is the first time I've ever gotten feedback. And she was like, yeah, like when I think you're great, it's just the team didn't feel like they could get to know you. Like I know like the bubbly personality you are, because I think I spoke with her over the phone when she asked me for my resume and my application. And she's like, but like it almost felt like you were a robot, and so maybe that's why they were drilling like into me so much. But like it is true though, like this is the silver lining I was talking about, because like she said it almost felt like you were reading from a script. And I was, because when I was prepping for this interview, like I was kind of like out of my head, because I was like, oh, perhaps this is like an investment banking interview and I'm not sure like what that's like. So like I was prepping all my behavioral questions like in paragraphs, and that's the biggest like advice I always tell people. Don't write paragraphs when you're prepping for interviews. Don't write paragraphs. Do like point form, like 5-point form, so you can talk freely through it, because that was my biggest fail. Like I was literally an actress. I was memorizing my lines, and then I would just recite it back to them, and they asked me something that wasn't in my script, I would like fumble really badly, and I think that's when they would drill into me. So she's like, just be yourself, be your bubbly, energetic self. Like don't, it's good to prep with your points, with your stories, but don't use a script. So that was actually advice that I took to heart for all my future interviews, both in finance and not in finance, and also advice that I share to a lot of students that, I interact with, I mentor. And then because of that advice, I ended up getting Super Day for TD, which I turned down because the day before I got RBC diversity, and then like 2 months later, that advice helped me to get Goldman SMT in New York City. So like, although it definitely like crushed my confidence a bit, and it was kind of awkward because the MD did refer me, the recruiter was rooting for me, and I felt like this wasn't even a job I applied to, and I was just like, damn, like you didn't even apply to this and you got cut in the first round after referral. That's kind of brutal. What? There were like 5 rounds. I'm like, what's wrong with you? But you know, I think rejection really is redirection, because I met that recruiter and she really took the time to give me personal feedback that helped in my, you know, interviews moving forward. Like, it just completely changed the way that I recruit and how I think about recruiting. And even for my big tech job, like, I use that advice as well. So I'm still like in contact with the recruiter, and she was worth many tears to cry. Just getting to know her and the advice that she gave me as an HR professional, and the fact that she's in my network now literally means everything. Okay, and I'm just gonna end it on this last story here. This is the time that I got rejected from getting a return offer at RBC, a full-time return offer. So for those of you that don't know, during my third year internship, I had two offers: RBC Diversity and Goldman Sachs New York City. Don't even get me started why I didn't accept Goldman Sachs. It was really just a timing issue, and like low-key, like I got a little bit scared of reneging my RBC offer. Okay, this is the last one. I'm going to keep it really short. This is a little bit different though, me getting rejected from a full-time return offer at RBC. So this isn't recruiting. This is, well, I guess it is, but it's like not an internship. This is like for the return. And that year, like only 50% in sales and trading got a return, less than 50% in iBanking for the cohort of the summer. I was not acting in a way that I would want a return offer. For example, I would go to the gym. I would not go to socials. I was not trying to go above and beyond. I think I did like 0 coffee chats. I really like didn't participate in training. It just wasn't for me. And I kind of knew it wasn't for me even in my first sales and training internship, but like now this was in person and it was draining. I was like, I'm so out of it. Like, no, I'm not doing this. So I felt like if I just kind of acted like I wouldn't want it, then I wouldn't get a return offer, and that would make my future trajectory a lot easier, versus having to like turn down a return offer to not have another offer on the other side, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew this wasn't it, chief. So I just wanted to like not do an amazing job and just, you know, coast or whatever. Anyway, so I was actually on vacation that summer, and just for a week, when like we were about to go on a boat. This is with my boyfriend's family, and I was just meeting them for the first time, and they had a boat, and we were about to go on the water, and I get this call from a Toronto number, and I see it, and I'm just like, okay. So I answer it, and the recruiter's like, hey, hi, this is blank from RBC. I just want to let you know that the process is really competitive this year, and unfortunately we cannot give you a return offer. And I was like, okay. I was honestly like smiling at this moment. Like she probably couldn't tell, because she was like, oh, we can introduce you to like other lines of business, like wealth management, asset management, blah blah blah. Like, I guess she was trying, she felt bad, but I was like, okay. Like, I was like, whatever. Like, I didn't really care. I was just like very happy, honestly. And I just felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. I started smiling, and then we went on the boat, and then we started swimming in the water, and I was just like laying in like a donut like this. Like, my body was through the donut, my arms were just like hanging on the donut floaty, and my boyfriend's dad felt really bad for me, and he was like, oh, is Winette okay? That's like very sad news. But he couldn't see my face, so he probably didn't see that I was just zen. I was just at peace floating on that donut. I wasn't crying in the lake. I was quite happy and content. And I took a selfie. I sent it to my family and my former coworkers, and I was like, I didn't get it. Peace. And I was at peace. So yeah, anyway, that's all the stories I want to tell you a bit about my rejections, awkward stories recruiting, happy recruiting, whatever that summer or term it is. It's so crazy, I know, but you know, it will all work out. Hope this helped you, and let me know what you want to see in the next one. Cheers.